Imagine, you open your eyes and outside your bedroom glass is not a courtyard, not a neighboring 9-story building, and not an eternal traffic jam on the road, but a living coral reef. A school of fish swims past, an octopus stirs somewhere near the bottom, and all of this is half a meter from your pillow. It sounds like a dream, but for a handful of people on this planet, such a morning view costs more than an entire house in a good neighborhood. Today, we will descend from modest floating boxes to homes that are asking sums with so many zeros that your eyes refuse to believe it. 20 floating dwellings, from almost affordable to truly insane. We will start from the 20th place, and believe me, the closer to the finale, the stronger the urge to ask again, how much? Welcome to the channel for the richest.
Luxury life.
Number 20. The underwater villa in Dubai. 2.5 kilometers from the coast of Dubai, in the middle of an artificial archipelago shaped like a world map, villas with a bedroom below sea level are swaying on the water. They are called the floating seahorse, and the whole gimmick is hidden underwater. The lower floor is entirely submerged beneath the surface, and the walls there are made of solid glass. You lie in bed, and around you are corals, fish, and curious divers who have nothing stopping them from visiting you through the transparent wall. Above the water, there are two more levels, a living room with a kitchen in the middle and an open deck with a jacuzzi on top. The area of each such villa is about 370 square meters, and a total of 131 of them will be built. This is part of a huge venture called the Heart of Europe, a piece of the world map made of 6 artificial islands where, besides the villas, 16 hotels are being built. The furniture inside is from the Italian Atelier Bentley. On the roof is a glass-bottom jacuzzi. A smart system manages the entire house, and the developer promises a guarantee on the construction for a whole 100 years ahead. They plan to hand over the whole thing in 2026. When the project was just launched, they were asking a little over $1 million for such a villa. Today, the price starts at 22 million dirhams. That is about $6 million. Over several years, the price tag has grown almost 5 times. And the strangest thing is that the queue of those willing to buy has only grown because of this. Number 19. The floating mansion in Miami. This house cannot be described in one word because it is neither a house nor a yacht, but something third. A glass cube on the water that looks like a villa, but at the same time can sail away. If you do not like the view from the window, you press a button, and you sail off to find a new piece of coastline. It stands by the most expensive district of Miami on South Beach and is fully tailored to Florida's weather. When a hurricane comes, the entire structure rises on hydraulic supports about 5.5 meters above the water, away from the angry waves. The glass holds up against wind up to 250 kilometers per hour. Inside is almost 400 squares, 4 bedrooms, a wine cellar, a retractable deck that hides into the hull when the house sets off on a journey, and all of this is completely autonomous. The roof, with an area of over 200 squares, is covered in solar panels for 36 kilowatts. In the hold, there is a battery for over 180 kilowatt hours, plus 2 tanks of 4,000 gallons each, which collect and purify rainwater. You can live completely off the shore. One such house was once docked at a luxury star-shaped island in Miami and appeared in shows on Netflix and National Geographic. The basic version of this marvel costs about $5.5 million, and in a full configuration, it reaches up to $10.5 million. And recently, the creating company changed owners and name and rolled out a smaller model, now starting from $975,000. Cheaper than a mansion, but still more expensive than what most of us have ever held in our hands. Number 18. The house on water with 4 pools. A trick question. Why does a house on water need a whole 4 pools if it is already standing in the middle of water? Logic takes a rest here, but wealth works at full force. This mansion in Boca Raton, Florida is called the Infinity House, precisely because of the pools. There is a mini pool with an overflow effect that curves along the deck, and several more separate plunge pools for every whim. Attached to the house is over 100 meters of its own waterfront with docks, so if you have a couple of yachts lying around, parking will be found for everyone. And this is not a metaphor. The facade faces the water for a length of more than 340 feet, a whole personal harbor. Inside, the real scale begins. More than 1,100 square meters of living space, glass walls everywhere, a master bedroom the size of a decent apartment, giant walk-in closets, and 8 more bedrooms on top because guests will eagerly come to a person with such a house. They are asking $25 million for all of this. True, the inside is so sterile and empty as if it is a showroom, not a home. Everything is new, shiny, and depersonalized. So the new owner will have to bring in a couple of books, paintings, and at least some trace of human life themselves. Number 17, the floating house Bravia Queen. Sometimes you look at a thing and think, it is essentially a dacha on wheels, only without wheels and on water. This is exactly the ambivalent impression this Slovenian development leaves. From the outside, a neat box with a small deck at the front and a spacious terrace on top, where a jacuzzi and a palm tree in a tub lie hidden. Inside is everything you have seen in any modern house on wheels. Built-in wood-like furniture, calm beige tones, laminate, basic sanitary ware, no wow factor. But the creators hit not with the interior. Their trump card is that this thing can stand literally anywhere, in the middle of a lake, in a quiet bay, in a river bend. Here today, tomorrow in another part of the country. Essentially, we have a compact house with a pleasant live-on-water option, and all its value rests precisely on this promise of freedom. It was brought, launched, placed in the middle of any calm body of water, and here you are, living where an ordinary house cannot be dragged in principle. Although, honestly, while examining the laminate and the standard faucet, you begin to think that freedom here costs suspiciously much. Number 16, the wooden wave house. Take a classic wooden house and bend it as if a wave rolled over it. You will get exactly this project, which architects among themselves call the wave house. The shape was suggested by the contours of boats, and it is precisely the curve that makes the whole picture. Without this bold wooden arc, we would have an ordinary, albeit expensive, house of glass, wood, and steel, and with it, an object that has collected a whole handful of professional awards. Architects generally love to give each other prizes for everything unusual, and this curve came in just right. The wood, glass, and steel here are quite ordinary. The house remains a house, but it is precisely this arc that turns it from a run-of-the-mill mansion into a thing that magazines write about. Whether the wave adds anything at all to the comfort of living inside is a big question, to which no one really gives an answer. But the house looks such that you will not pass by and your gaze catches. Is it beautiful? Unconditionally. Will another spectacular rich man's mansion change the world? One could argue here. Number 15, the stainless steel yacht mansion. Florida again, this time Fort Lauderdale. And again, a strange thing that pretends to be everything at once. Before us is a yacht mansion, which was first shown to the public at a boat show. The creators made the material the main reason for pride. They assured that this is the first yacht in the world made entirely of stainless steel. It sounds impressive, and here is what is inside. More than 800 square meters of area, a length of about 25 meters, 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, and a jacuzzi for 7 people. The front deck is itself the size of a decent apartment, about 150 squares. Formally, up to about 1,500 people can fit on board. There is one nuance. For all its yacht appearance, this thing does not really sail anywhere, and does not replace a real yacht. It is rather a mansion pretending to be a ship. They ask $12 million for the basic version. The manufacturers modestly hinted that interest in their creation was shown mainly by billionaires. And here arises only one honest question. Will a billionaire gather 6 friends to fill this huge jacuzzi? Number 1. Number 14. The floating house in Seattle. Seattle is a city famous for its rains. It pours there almost all year round. And it would seem, who would want to settle also right on the water, in the very center of dampness? But there are those willing, and they pay solidly for it. This floating house was built to capture the maximum of surrounding views. The panorama opens up almost 300 degrees. Here is the lake and the distant Olympic Mountains, and the silhouette of downtown Seattle. The strangest thing about it is that a house standing on water has a full-fledged basement level, plus 2 floors of living space and a large roof terrace on top. Everything is done expensively, with taste, and this pleasure cost about $6.25 million. For such money in an ordinary city, you buy not one house, but an entire street. And here, you pay to fall asleep to the noise of rain and the splash of water simultaneously, and to drink coffee in the mornings, looking at the snowy peaks in the distance. Number 13, the float winghouse boat. And here is a story for those who just cannot decide what they need more, a house or a boat. A Portuguese studio proposed a compromise called the wing on water. The construction is modular, like a building set. If you want more space, you attach another block. If you want it more compact, you remove the excess. The walls are entirely made of glass panels that slide apart and erase the boundary between the house and the street. But the main highlight is how this house can be equipped. In the basic version, it simply stands fans in place, and having paid extra, you get 2 outboard motors, and then the house unhurriedly sails at a speed of about 5.5 kilometers per hour. Not a speedboat, of course, but it is not supposed to race. It is a house after all. Then comes the usual set of a modern eco-toy: solar panels, batteries, a pellet stove, water tanks. The idea is that the house feeds itself with energy and does not depend on the shore. There is also a luxury version designed for fully autonomous life in the warm season. You start the motors, move away from the dock, and dissolve somewhere in a river delta for a couple of weeks. To sail away from everyone and take your house with you, there is definitely something in this. Number 12. The house in the Atlantic forest. Most people dream of a house by the water, and someone decides to build it right in the middle of a tropical forest, on water, in a green thicket where a normal person cannot even get to. These lucky ones erected a luxurious dwelling in the depths of a humid forest with every conceivable comfort, and placed it so cleverly that the house would not stand out, and so that the local residents could not see what the owners are up to inside. The architects proudly declare that the idea is to connect architecture with nature. Although, hand on heart, this sounds like a beautiful justification. One could simply admit the rich wanted a house in the forest, so they built it. But the views from here are generous: the sea, the mountains, and the forest itself on all sides. The house seems to hang between water and tree crowns, and it is branches and sky, not neighbors, that peer into the large windows. And with all its scale, it manages to almost dissolve in the greenery, depending on which side you look at it from. Number 11. The Floating Hotel Suite. The architect who invented this strange floating bubble says the idea was born when he was just 15. He watched an old James Bond movie where the villain threw everything away for life underwater, in a lair shaped like an octopus, and he caught fire with the dream of creating a space dedicated to the ocean. The interpretation is, to put it mildly, peculiar. Actually, that character was a supervillain, not a romantic, but from this childhood dream grew Anthea, the first floating hotel suite in the world. It is a closed capsule made of fiberglass with a circular view and a glass bottom through which the underwater world is visible. Inside, up to 12 people can fit. There is a relaxation area, a round bed, a bath, and a solarium on the roof. Everything runs on solar batteries. Everything is autonomous. Designer furniture and a minibar are included. This capsule was perfected over 15 years and several prototypes, but now it holds against frost down to -30 and heat up to +40, stands calmly in force 6 wind, and according to the creators, is in principle unsinkable. It is anchored with a special screw in the sand so as not to cripple the bottom. If you wanted not to buy but just to spend the night, a night in such a capsule off the coast of France cost about $336, and the purchase price depends on the configuration and starts from about $365,000, while the top version reaches up to $730,000. For this money, you get both a bedroom and an underwater observatory, and most likely a slight seasickness as a gift. Number 10. The Floating City. Next begins the territory of absolute madness, where price tags lose connection with reality. Imagine a whole man-made island city rocking in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. It is assembled from modules of ultra-strong concrete, surrounded by walls over 50 meters high to dampen the biggest waves, and they promise that in the event of a hurricane, the entire island can be led away from the storm. It is the size of half of Monaco, and is designed for almost 15,000 permanent residents, with its own schools, clinics, shops, and pools. The flight to it from the capital of the Bahamas takes only about 25 minutes, and from Miami about 1.5 hours. They promise sun here 340 days a year, no taxes are taken from residents, and a separate license can be arranged for business. In the most expensive mansions, which are built only after the developer sees the future owner's plans, they promise a helipad, a cinema hall, and a personal submarine. And now about the money. The most modest studio here costs about $20,000, but a named villa at the top of the price scale is valued at, just imagine, $1.5 billion. One house, $1.5 billion. They were planning to launch all this several years ago, and how far the project has advanced during this time is an open question. For now, the numbers from the press releases look rather like a bold dream than a ready address where you can arrive. Number 9. The Floating Glass House. There is a catch right in the name here. The house is called floating, but it does not float on water. It stands on a hillside above the ocean in Laguna Beach, California. But in everything else, it is a model designer house of the kind that local realtors call trophy. Its entire idea is in one thing. From the street, it is practically invisible, but from the beach side, it is see-through. The walls are entirely glass, and privacy here is sacrificed for the sake of one thing: the ability to show your lifestyle to the entire coast. Anyone walking down on the beach below can, if they wish, make out what the owners are eating for dinner. It was built in 2004 by a famous architect from Orange County, a specialist in such showcase mansions. 3 floors, 4 bedrooms, more than 500 square meters of glass. The neighborhood here, by the way, is not ordinary at all. This is a coast where houses cost like small fortunes, and neighbors measure wealth by the view from the window. This glass cube is valued at approximately $15 million. And for this money, it seems, there was never a budget found for the most necessary thing: curtains. Number 8. The Electric Floating Home Mothership. Sometimes an idea is ahead of its time and hits a wall of indifference. Back in 2014, an Australian enthusiast came up with a house on water running entirely on the sun and called it the Mothership. The logic is ironclad. If anywhere Australia has an excess of sun, charge the batteries at least all year round. Designer Tim Knox assembled the concept of a luxury floating home that was supposed to feed on light alone. It would seem, take it and invest. But he never found investors willing to take the risk back then. Even on the terms of shared collective ownership, no one bit. The idea outstripped its time literally by a couple of steps. It is funny because today solar panels are slapped on literally every other floating house, as we have just seen in almost every item, and the idea no longer surprises anyone. One can only hope that the man managed to stake his invention before everyone else profited from it. Number 7. The Sailing Villa. There is a theory that floating villas came into fashion for a reason, as if they are bought in hope. If my house is a boat, then the rising ocean will not get me. I hasten to disappoint. When the truly big wave comes, not one such vessel will save you. Even the most impressive ark will turn out to be useless. But fashion is fashion. Before us is a Dutch version of a floating villa, and from the outside, it suspiciously resembles a modern office center that can walk along canals. The most interesting begins at the parking spot. The owners fold down a special ramp and roll out their own car from the built-in garage, something like a personal car ferry. You sailed up to the shore, lowered the ramp, got behind the wheel, and drove off on business. Not the most glamorous detail, but practical beyond measure. Everything else inside is a standard set of bedrooms, bathrooms, and living rooms, decorated so evenly and depersonalized as if you live inside a furniture hypermarket catalog. Soulful? Not very, but you can take the car with you. Number 6. The Urban Rigger Student Complex. Building housing from old sea containers was not invented yesterday. At first, those for whom an ordinary apartment was unaffordable saved this way, and at the same time, it was considered a reasonable way to employ mountains of rusting containers, with which the whole world is already littered. But where there is a smell of profit, a developer quickly appears. And so in Copenhagen, where there are plenty of containers, they assembled something curious from them. 9 containers were placed on a floating base right in the harbor and turned into a student dormitory. Inside are individual rooms, common living rooms, a courtyard garden, storage rooms, and a laundry room on the basement level. Renting such a cell costs a student about $600 a month. The containers were insulated with a special material, developed by the way at NASA, so that they are warm in winter. On top is a green roof, along the sides are solar panels, and the heating and cooling work through a clever system that takes heat directly from the seawater. And yes, the complex comes with a place for kayaks and a swimming area. Student life on water, with a view of the harbor instead of a dreary concrete dorm box. Who would have thought that containers would live to see this? Number 5. The floating house in Toronto. In 2017, a newspaper put the price of a small floating house in the headline, and the public gasped. $1.5 million. For what? For a tiny cottage in the Toronto harbour. Yes, in Canada, where half the year is not warm at all. The realtors, of course, praised the wondrous views of the marina. Although, if the house stands right in the port, it is strange to expect anything else. You admire mostly the same little houses packed tightly around. They made the very idea of life on water the main selling point, and there is nothing to argue with here. To live on water somewhere in Barbados or Malibu sounds wonderful, but Toronto, where it chills to the bone 9 months a year, an idea for an amateur. Nevertheless, a buyer was found, and he got open terraces on all 3 levels, a kitchen living room as a single space, and a cozy, generally speaking, little house on water. $1.5 million for a cottage that freezes to its own dock in winter and ice forms around. For someone, even this is a joy. Number 4. The Villa Heli in Finland. From the looks, an ordinary Port Authority booth in the middle of a marina. In reality, something more interesting. This is Villa Heli in the Finnish city of Espoo, a floating house that is rented out both for boring business meetings and for overnight stays, if you really want to spend the night on water. Inside are 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and, since this is Finland of course, a sauna. You cannot do without it here. The villa is designed for 4 to 5 people for sleeping, but the owners like to brag that up to 25 guests cram in here for a meeting or a party. The glass walls open the water from all sides, and the boundary between I am indoors and I am on the lake seems to blur. In essence, this is such an unusual little house for rent, which simply got lucky to find itself in the middle of a marina, sitting in the sauna, looking at the water, and knowing that it is a harbor around you, not a bathhouse in a residential area. There is a strange appeal in this. Number 3. The Seapod capsules. And now, the most futuristic thing on our list. Panama, turquoise water, and from it, on thin legs, white capsules stick out, as if they flew off the screen of an old cartoon about space. This is the Seapod, the brainchild of a Dutch architect. An answer to the question of what to do when all the beautiful resorts are already packed to the brim. They stand an hour and a half from the capital of Panama, by a quiet fishing village, and float on the water on the iceberg principle. A steel leg with air inside raises the capsule about 3 meters above the waves. Each capsule is about 77 square meters spread over 3.5 levels. A bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, a bathroom. Not a palace, but not a closet either. The most interesting thing is how all of this is managed. Instead of keys, the owner has a special bracelet that opens doors and commands the house. And they even promise help from a built-in artificial intelligence. Food and small items are delivered by drone. Something bigger is brought by a robotic cart. They suggest getting to the capsule on a paddleboard. The project's start, however, was embarrassing. At one of the first public presentations, the prototype tilted and fell right onto the neighboring dock due to a ballast system failure. There were no casualties, and the price over a couple of years even became kinder. The basic eco version costs from $295,000, the flagship one from $395,000. If you have deep pockets, a love for gadgets, and a readiness to paddle everywhere, perhaps this is your home of the future. Number 2. The Departure 1 amphibious home. Before us is an honest hybrid that finally eliminates the agonizing choice. This is Departure 1, half house on wheels, half floating home. Literally a caravan that turns into a boat. There is no need to decide whether we go to the mountains or onto the water. We hitch it to the car and haul it along roads, and then we launch it onto the water and go down the river with a 15 horsepower motor. Inside there are sleeping places for 4, a kitchen, a small terrace, a bathroom with a shower, heating and cooling, in a word, everything for a long journey. The hull is made of aluminum, so it fears neither rust, nor rot, nor osmosis, which affects other materials. It can hold out completely on its own for a couple of days, without being connected to electricity and water. They make it in 2 sizes, a bigger one and a smaller one, and the motor can be taken from 15 to 50 horsepower, or even an electric one entirely. On land, it is a full-fledged camper. On water, a cozy little house, and switching between modes takes just a few minutes. The color schemes are slightly prim, restrained in a German way, but that is a trifle. The basic version will cost about 58,000 euros, approximately $67,000. By the standards of this list, almost a gift. So get your piggy bank, it is getting warmer here. Number 1. the baby blue turtle. And for the finale, no pomp, no billions, just a tiny floating house of only 15 feet in width and 38 in length, which neatly fits into an ordinary marina and suits those who do not chase. It is assembled from plywood and fiberglass, and in essence, it is the most ordinary tiny house, just on water, not on land. The only trick is hidden in the layout. The bedrooms here are placed on the lower level. This is not by chance. Below, the rocking from the waves is almost not felt, and you sleep far more peacefully than above, where even a light wave noticeably rocks the house. A couple from Auckland, New Zealand built the Blue Turtle, and they built it exactly for one sensation: to live in the very heart of the city, but at the same time to feel like you were on vacation every day. Without millions, without bracelets, without a personal submarine, simply a little house that softly rocks on the water. And honestly, after all these billion-dollar islands and glass cubes, it is precisely such an idea that seems the sanest of all. That was our entire swim through the most incredible homes on water. From a plywood baby around the corner of a marina to a concrete island for $1.5 billion. If you had to choose right now, which of these houses would you settle in? Write about it in the comments and subscribe to the channel for the richest. Here it is about luxury, wealth, and the lives of the most influential people on the planet. Thank you for watching, and right now, watch the previous luxurious episodes that have already appeared on your screen.